So, well, welcome everybody to the February 25th Town Board Workshop. We have three agenda items tonight. And I will say that usually we slot 15 minutes for each agenda item. We have some guests that came in, I think, from as far away as Albany tonight for our first topic. So we do have 30 minutes slotted for the presentation by BN Professional Services on a proposal for Webster open space. So I'll hand the baton over to John and Larry and the crew.
Great, thank you.
Okay, well, I guess I can go first.
Please.
I feel so honored. So we're here to talk about open space. Myself, Larry Peckham, I don't know, I know some of you. I was the chair of the Open Space Committee in 2005, I believe, plus or minus. And so today we're here as a group, actually. It's myself, John Bean from Bean Planning, Peter Elder, who I'm sure everybody knows, Diane Davis, who, if you don't know her, you will know her soon, and Gail Binder. So it's been over 15 years since I chaired the Open Space Committee last go-around, where we put together a green space plan. And Barry, you were on the committee, and as I remember, you didn't have gray hair in those days, but so it's been a while. So it's been a while, yeah. At the time we started the last committee, Webster was seen to be the fastest growing town in the county, and many residents were concerned about the rate of growth and what changing character of the town. So Kathy Thomas, who was the supervisor at the time, was pretty sensitive to that, and she formed this committee to address that issue. And the first thing the committee did was find somebody that knows something about this subject. And we did a search, and we ran across Bean Planning, John Bean in particular, and he had just finished the planning project for open space planning for Pittsford, has many years of experience, and I think you're leaving from here tonight and you're going to go down to Brockport to work on the canal with the state.
Yeah.
So here's a man that really knows the subject. So the committee, after we found John, he put together a green space plan to go forward, and we started an outreach effort. 2 bond referendums were held. The first one was defeated. The second one, which was somewhat more modest, did pass, and then bonding and the grants were obtained, and 1,000 acres plus or minus of land were identified and purchased or protected under that plan. It was a nicely executed nicely executed project, and I think everything I've heard in the last 15 years is everybody was very happy with that. Now we're in 2021. Those bonds that were issued are coming to an end. I think 2023 or 2024. And also I believe the 2008 Town Comprehensive Plan is coming up for an update, probably pretty quick. So the group of us thought maybe it's a good time to look back and look at the current state of Webster's open space and the situation, and see if there's reason to do something more. If we look at the change in Webster over that period of time, Webster has 21,000 acres of total acres of property or of land. In 2005, the population was 37,000, and we had 8,000 undeveloped acres. In 2022, I believe these are pretty close, we now have 46,000 people and 4,000 acres of undeveloped land. So if we wait another 15 years, and I just draw a straight line through this, we're probably up to 55, if we keep going the same rate, we're up to 55,000 people and no undeveloped land. So if there's any interest of people to to do something different than exactly what's happening now, this may be a last chance to really address the subject. So the town continues to build up pretty quickly, and as a result, to encourage discussion and provide a basis for that discussion, we as a group found John and had him put together a proposal to investigate the current state of undeveloped land, examine possibilities for town purchases possibly, to develop and present a plan for you, the board, and help manage the execution of that plan if the board decides to proceed with it. So with that introduction and background, I'd just like to turn it over to John and let him present the proposal that he's put together.
Thank you, Larry.
There you go.
It's great to be back in town. I see some familiar faces and some new faces. I want to just thanks to the group. I call them the troublemakers or advocates, maybe is a better word, Tom. Because I think Larry reached out to me, and so did Diana, to say, hey, John, we think the town, what Larry had just said, it seems the time is right to have this conversation about open space. We call it, for starters anyway, version 2.0 for Webster. Recognizing the town, since Larry was chair of the committee, has still also done additional purchases and acquisitions of land for open space and green space. And I think everyone, I'm sure, appreciates all that. But maybe what was asked, I think Tom's supervisor was conveyed to me through this group that you thought it would be good to have some numbers, some things to look at, not just goals, but what are we targeting maybe? How much land? What might it cost? What might our options be? And so we worked together with this group, and with the help of the town, provided some of the geographic information system, and we analyzed that at least to let's call it a basic level of what's out there. And so that's where that number of a little over 4,000 acres comes to. So I'm going to jump up to this map real quick. I'm not going to get into detail on the map because that's really not the point tonight. But this map shows for everyone where those parcels of property are, and the green, a lot of it's protected already. The green and the colors on the left, the beige, are other protected land, the Schreiber Farm and the county parks, etc. But the parcels that are few and unprotected are shown in the different colors of brown and orange and yellowish colors. And there's like 4,200 acres of land there. Recognizing this land is in various forms of private ownership, right? Institutional ownership. So we really don't know at this point the level of interest across the board for all these property owners in preserving land for open space, and that is part of the goal, is to have that conversation if that's something the board thinks is a good idea. I know, just anecdotally, there's folks on the committee, Gail, that you're a property owner, right? And you've mentioned to us that you'd be interested in maybe not developing your land or developing some land that you have. It's not a large holding, but there's probably more interest in one than meets the eye, right? And so that's what we want to explore. I'll give you a few numbers now, and we'll talk about that and schedule. So one of the things that we looked at is, well, what would a cost of something like this be? Now, these numbers are really based on not an appraisal, but they're based on the assessor's values. And if the assessor's values we felt were depressed because it might have an agricultural abatement, because it's farmland or something, we gave a value to it of, I don't remember now, $4,000 or $5,000 an acre or something. But we had a range of investment from $3.6 million, which we, our opinion would be that might protect around 430 acres of land. Okay, and the next increment was $7.2 million, and that might protect something in the neighborhood of 900 acres, which is kind of similar to what was done last time. The third increment was $10.8 million, and that might protect 1,350 acres or so of property. And the next increment was $14.7 million, which would be protect approximately 1,640 acres. So that kind of gives some alternates or something for the town to think of. And so, so really what we're talking about is a process, right, to identify priority sites, to, and from one point of view, like looking at their land, identify what community goals are, to what makes something priority property, identifying, budget aspects, fiduciary, what if anything, can the town invest, again, all the things that you're coming at. So what we want to do, what we propose is actually create an open space plan for the town, right? So would focus on preserving land through permit protection, through bonding, through some other financing mechanism, purchasing some property outright, purchasing easements on some property where you don't want to or need to hold the title. And the other part of it was looking at all the other tools, looking at zoning, and incentive zoning for protecting land, looking at all the ways that you can do it. So you come up with a comprehensive way to, conserve these resources. The only thing I think we can all agree on is the fact that at some point, all this land will become developed. Unless a private owner says, I don't want to develop it, I prohibit my heirs from ever developing it, and that goes in the deed. And that does sometimes happen, right? And the land trust is out there, Jesse Land Trust, sometimes that can happen. But beyond that, you just have to look at the Rochester region or any metropolitan region of the world, right, and you'll see that's what happens. And that's not a bad thing. Development is important, homes are important, but so there's some decision making though, as Larry said. We don't know when that would be. Will it be in 15 years as straight line, or will it be longer? So we put together a proposal on how we would approach doing this for the town. We modeled it on the work we did last time we were in town, and we also kind of expanded the scope a little bit to address some zoning tools and some other tools that aren't only financial, not only purchase, right? So to give you a whole list of tools that would dovetail into your comprehensive plan, right? So if you think of the comprehensive plan as having different elements, like a transportation element, a land use element, this would be the open space element. And we're giving it a pretty detailed look. It's not just what I call, apple pie and motherhood goals of an open space plan, but really getting down to crisp plan that identifies what you're going to protect and how you're going to protect it, and what it's going to cost and how it's going to be paid for, so everybody can understand it. The other little piece in town, this reflects a little bit our discussion. If the town were to do something like this, a program, kind of a timeline and activities. I don't expect you all to read this. It was more just if you would, quite frankly, a prop, just to show you a nice pretty picture of a flow of work. But it's real. It's based on
What
our
we don't know
experience.
is if Karen can
zoom
zoom
on
in the
that.
camera for people at home.
Oh, good. Well, that would be nice. Well, they can see here. We show kind of some infographics, right? Basically, taking folks on a timeline from now, right? Let's call this winter, spring, 2021, summer, fall 2021, winter, spring 2022, summer, fall 2022, and 2023, 2024. Now, sometimes these seem far away, but you also know they're right here, right? And so the steps along the way include, getting the committee organized, refining this work that we did, the mapping and all that, landowner outreach, a public information program, to explain to this community and have community input to the process, getting the open space plan underway, get a market analysis going so that the board can all understand what the values are, the ranges of values, right, because they're going to be widespread. Continue landowner outreach into 2022, complete a market analysis, having the open space plan complete, okay, and then in the summer, fall of 2022, the town board approval process, adoption of the plan, adoption of any resolutions, bond resolutions, changes to the town code, zoning, etc. And then from that point, moving on to implementing the plan, purchasing property, purchasing development rights, any final changes to the town code that may be in order. And so that kind of outlines the whole program. In a way. We put together a proposal, you've all got a copy of it, which outlines these tasks in more detail, provides a little bit of our experience in this work. We provide a budget and a kind of a level of effort, if you would, and that cost estimate. And the other part of the cost of doing this kind of a project is the purchase of the property, right? And it's whatever is negotiated or how that's done for the value of the property, which is the bulk of the cost, right? But there's other costs involved. Some of them are minor, and some of it can be significant, like the cost of, you're going to buy property, you want to be sure the title, normal real estate transactions, but sometimes surveys, right? You want a clean bill of health environmentally in terms of there's no pollution if you're purchasing a property, even an easement, all these kind of things, the cost of bonding, the cost of the planning, the cost of legal fees. There's those costs, and we put them at kind of a high number of 20%. So we're aware of that. It would be under that number, but that's a number we use for planning at this stage because we don't know really what the total extent would be. So I think in the end, the goal would be to, I think, to go forward and look at the point of 2024, 2025 and say, okay, look what we did. Look what we did. We really put together what I would like to think is a really great plan for the town. It's ambitious enough that we're really doing something, but it's not so big that most of the people feel we're going over too far. But something that provides meaningful change. I think there's a lot of interest from a lot of people in being able to get around town by walking, by hiking, by biking. That could be a big part of it, connecting the town together. Big part could be identifying parts of town that don't have a lot of open space or recreation resources, filling those in. The other part would be, I would expect, asking the townsfolk, what should our priorities be? What should we focus on? Is this important at all? And understanding that. So that would be all, I think, part of the work of the committee and the town to make that all happen. So that's it. That's it in a nutshell. I'm glad to be here and have a chance to chat with you all, and I'll stop talking and back to you, Supervisor.
Sure. John, all right, thank you. I don't know if any of the rest of the team have anything, or if we...
There's grant. Yes, there is grant funding available. Lots of different grants. They're almost all for the capital side of things, to purchase land, purchase easements. The last time when we were involved with the town a couple of years ago, I think we were over $2 million of grants for the town. 2.5 million or so, and grants. So there is funding available. There are ways to be smart about how this is done to reduce the out-of-pocket to the townspeople. There's landowners who may want to donate. For example, in Pittsford, when we did that, the landowners donated. The town, I remember these numbers. They authorized $9.9 million to do their preservation plan. In fact, we just drove by the Powers Farm on the way in on 490 by the canal. There, behind the canal, you see that beautiful farm. They authorized $9.9 million. They spent in the neighborhood of $7 million. Is what they spent. And in addition to the grants, the landowners donated over $3.6 million in value to the town, where they agreed to not go for the appraised value, but they sold at what's called a bargain sale. They have a little benefit. That's a tax write-off for them if they have income they can use to offset it. But also, they wanted to partner with the town. They wanted to save the land. They didn't want to. They could have gotten more for it, in other words. So that would be part of the whole process. So, thank you for your question.
Well, all right. Anybody on the town board have a comment or question?
My only comment is that one of your points certainly is that we would have to obviously go out for a referendum on something like this, but it's important to gauge the interest in the town as well.
Yeah. And that's
I agree wholeheartedly that, we definitely need to get the opinion of the residents before moving forward, I would say. Is it an overwhelming desire to add open space. 'Cause I know, I recall hearing a statistic that the town of Webster leads all the other towns in Monroe County as far as acreage of open space. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know it was, so. Is that, you heard that statistic before?
I don't know, I do know that we've got, what, close to 1,500,
2,600.
26,
Um,
including electric parking.
Yeah, actually, well, Barry and Bill?
Well, I think that there's absolutely, a part of our population that is very interested in slowing development, if not ending development.
Yeah.
The problem the board faces is the cost. And because it's not that we don't have any upcoming significant bonding issues for major upgrades to our infrastructure. One being highway garage, another one being our phase 2 of our sewage treatment plant. We're looking at bonding millions of dollars to do that. Does it fit?
Yeah.
I think it's good to have numbers around this.
Yep.
Because it's very easy for people to say, we want more open space, we think we should preserve more open. Sorry. We think we should preserve more open space. But until people really see what the cost of that is, you really can't make a decision.
Yeah. Bill?
We got a tough act of balancing our budget. We got a bond that's gonna expire, but in the meantime, we're gonna add 2 more bonds for municipal equipment and buildings and pump stations. At some point, the taxpayer's gonna say to us, enough's enough. Let's stop spending for a while.
And that will be up to the residents.
And they're gonna have to vote on it, whether they wanna spend that money.
And it's interesting, I had, of course, this is the first time, I guess, not that the town board is not aware, I tried to let them know that starting back a year ago, I think it started with Diana and Gail, and then the next meeting, it was Diana and Gail. Then the third meeting was Diana, Gail, and Larry, and then I think the fourth meeting was, I've been in a lot of meetings on this in the last year. And I've tried to update the board that this was probably coming to, I want to say, a head where you guys are going to come in and present this idea and the proposal. So since I have an advantage of having a head start mentally on being aware of this for the last year, more so than the other 4 board members, and that might be the only head start I have mentally on them, but that's another story. I have a couple of comments and a couple of questions. And especially in this day and age with what we've gone through in the last year in this country, I'm going to say this is the genre of, here are some things I think we all can agree on. That everybody in this room, and I would venture to guess that almost every resident of Webster would agree with these things. Number 1, I don't think anybody that lives in Webster wants 55,000 people in this town that is 35 square miles. Is that a safe guess that we would all agree on that? Or 99% of the population would agree that the thought of going from 46,000 people to 55,000, as you said, Jen, I think you said in the next however many years based on 4,000 acres and all that. There are not many residents of Webster that would not agree that that is concerning to them. Number 2, and this was long before I was the supervisor. I call this also maybe debunking a little bit of a myth. This town and its leadership has prioritized green space. And I'm going to prove it empirically with 2 things. One, and Karen in the back looked at me odd when I took this off the wall tonight here in the town boardroom. So I hope that they can see it at home on the camera. This is essentially, as of 2019, a map of Webster and identifies that 2,600 acres of green space and the different breakdown of them, parks and this and that. Now, why does this picture prove that we have prioritized, long before I was the supervisor, open space? Because in this boardroom where it hangs, and Karen, I promise I'll hang it back up, it won't get broken, this is the only picture in the boardroom besides pictures of the supervisors for the last 100 and some odd years. You find that interesting? It's the only other picture. And the same exact picture is hanging in the town hall lobby. Did anybody know that? You know what other pictures are in the town hall lobby? The war veterans. So to me, that shows that the town and its leadership has prioritized green space. Now, the second empirical data item that I'm going to say is that we do prioritize green space is that in 2020, the town bought 40 acres, the Buckler property, correct? What is that going to be used for?
Open space.
Looking at,
Thank you.
Open space.
And I am confident, based on what is going on right now, that one of the properties on the inventory list, we have a draft as of today of a purchase contract for approximately 20 acres. That is land that I think has been around for 20 years of the family talking to the government about selling to us. And would tie in very nicely, I think, to our trail system.
right,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So I don't want to get too detailed, but I'm sure people can connect the dots on that. That's 14 months. And we bought 60 acres. I don't want to speak for the other board members, but I think when the opportunities come up, we jump on it. Price is right. And the third thing I would hope that we all agree on is that the 2008 comprehensive plan needs to be updated. It is 2021. And I want to say that process has somewhat begun. I have reached out and I've gotten assistance from people in this town, leaders in this town, who have been around for 20 years, so they have a good perspective of taking a look at the initiatives from the 2008 comprehensive plan. And I have asked them, can you look at these initiatives as they're summarized up and tell me which ones do you feel got done and which ones didn't? And the exercise that we're doing is not for their health. It's so that we can tabulate that up and learn as we go into the updated comprehensive plan. We learn from history, or you're destined to repeat it. So if we have a lot of things that didn't get accomplished in the 2008 comprehensive plan, what are the genres of them that we can learn from that as we put together the next comprehensive plan to avoid that? Because I made it very clear, I'm not going to be involved in some comprehensive plan that is glad-handing people, that doesn't have a potential to have those initiatives get done, based on the rules of engagement the day that it gets adopted. Does everybody understand that? So those are my three statements. My two questions are this. And I can't read that, John, but that's just because I have old eyes. But where in that timeline does a referendum go to have the people of Webster say, yeah, we want to do this, or no, we don't want to do this? If it's at the end of that process and there's a lot of time, energy, and money out before we go ask the town, that concerns me. If it's closer to the beginning of the process, I think Patty, John, everybody said, yeah, you get it on and let's see what the people have to say. That's not as cut and dry as you would think.
No.
No, they have to
because
be
of
aware.
what John, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, what Bill and Barry said. In a vacuum, we all want open space. But I got to tell you something. You want open space until all of a sudden there's raw sewage in your front lawn. And we have a 60-year-old sewer plant that
Oh, yeah.
we'd rather not have raw sewage in your front lawn. Luckily, John, you live in Albany, so it's not going to affect you. Okay?
So I'll tell you this, I'd love to do it all. I'd love to build the highway garage, I'd love to build the sewer plant, and I'd love to have the open space. But that's a challenge that we'll have to discern as we go along.
So we talk about 4,000 acres of land that's still undeveloped, 4,000. And let's say that we are all in agreement here, let's move forward, so we're going to spend $5 million. Okay, we're going to do a referendum for $5 million. Still are going to have to identify which pieces of property you desire, or we desire as a community, and then arrange to do that. So, well, there's a lot more to this than just agreeing whether we'd like to move forward on this.
And that's why, Barry, where does a referendum come in that timeline?
Right at the beginning. I think, based on what we did last time, we can talk about 4,000 acres are undeveloped. 4,000 acres are not available.
Right.
And you don't know what is available until you have a process to go out and talk to all these people in a serious way and say, do you have interest in doing this, and in what kind of framework would you be willing to do it? I think that's something that could come out of this proposal, that piece of it for sure, to go and do a survey of that interest on the part of the landowners. And then you can come up and say, well, only 100 acres are available, which doesn't cost too much. That's one thing you do. You probably go out and get a grant and do that. Or there's a lot of interest and they'd really be interested in it. I think I wouldn't go to a referendum until you know that.
Right.
If you ask for 5 million and you can only spend 500,000, that was wasting an awful lot of people's time and energy.
You have to identify the properties first that are available.
And I think that takes time, so this is 2021, I don't believe that can be done this year. It takes time to just set up all those meetings and get that organized. I would say if you're gonna go to a referendum, I think they're probably next year, 2022 sometime might work. And then you could find out, are people interested in that? If there is no interest on the part of landowners to sell the land, well, then we close up the book and say, okay, it was a nice effort.
As I look through this list, I can see a couple, one sticks out in my mind right away where I know that they would be interested. Cost, the price of what we're willing to pay would be the deciding factor.
Right. I think the issues with a lot of these people, once they start getting to the point where they have some interest in moving on, for whatever the reason is, if there is no discussion about the town possibly wanting to preserve the state of property, then they're gonna probably sell to developers and it will just move on. They won't wait forever. That's why I'm thinking if there is it might be good to go through that planning process and the outreach process to landowners and firm up a plan that can be executed. I would go that far. You don't have to go, when you're done with that, if you see there's 4 properties and nobody on the board says, hey, who cares about that property? Then again, you don't have to go through the rest of that expense. And the big expense comes at the end, where you're starting to do all the real estate transaction costs and all the cost of actually purchasing it. But I think it's a very good time to do that outreach and figure out, is this something that can be done?
Sorry, we have a little light malfunction that I think we can fix pretty quick. One of those has to be had to turn some of the lights back on. Well, we've gone a few minutes over, that's fine. I know you came a long way, John. I'll go back to, and this might be offline, I'll get together with Larry, John, and the crew, is that the reason why trying to figure out the referendum, both in the timeline that's there, but also how much money will be invested to get to a referendum. And that's the thing, is that, the proposal, and John, you said it, it's 20% is the estimate of soft cost, surveys, this and that. So you buy $5 million in a bond or in a referendum, it means you're paying $4 million for the land. Is that right? Then 20% of the $5 million is the soft cost surveys, this and that. It's an estimate, it's probably high. But within that estimate is John, your firm in this proposal is about $248,000 to perform this task
Right.
on behalf of the town. Without prejudice, I'm not saying whether that's a good price, bad price, or this and that. What I'm trying to figure out is, when does the board and the town taxpayers have to pay that $248,000? We have to pay that all to get to a referendum to see if people want to spend $5 million? So are we spending $250,000 to analyze enough to be on a referendum? Or is the referendum a free ride with volunteer work and this and that, and we get it on the ballot, and if the people say yes, then we start spending those soft costs like the $248,000?
I think that's a good question, right? And I think it's one of the things that I would say, since it's been so long, right, since we've had that was a bigger conversation, one of the things that we would include in the approach we would take is we would do a community survey and ask people, and something we could do is send a questionnaire out to every resident of the town, ask them, how important is this to you? Should we, to the town, how important are these activities? I think we learned last time, I think the concern that came up, we could all armchair quarterback this, but it was 3,000 acres was targeted 20 years ago, right? And a $20 million price tag. I think the number was too much for people. And so just conceptually it's too much, too big of a number, and so looking forward, I think what we heard at that time, when that vote went down, people said it was too much money. And they were concerned about a blank check. That came up saying, well, we don't know what we're getting, for the 20 million. We don't have any right transactions, we don't know the interest, we don't know the price. So what we did was we went back to town, Larry said, let's go back. There was a post-vote survey. What did people think? We did a lot of work after the vote, during the vote and afterward, to find out people all wanted it. Just like you said, most people wanted it. They wanted a smaller plan. They wanted to know what the properties were. They wanted to know where the money was going. And the other part was that gave us time to put together grant applications, et cetera. So, and I know the number seems like a lot of money, but the soft cost that you're going to pay for our services, in the scheme of things, is
John, I'm not questioning percentage, I'm questioning when it gets paid, because then the board has to authorize.
Oh, right.
If it's paid all up front, because it costs to send out those surveys, it costs to do all this stuff. If that's when the 248 is out, and we've run out of time, and I'm going to tell you this right now.
Sure.
I love that timeline, because we're going to get that timeline,
Yep.
and we're going to talk about, it really is one end of the spectrum or the other, is that it doesn't cost this town a dime to get on a referendum in 2022, and if the people say, yeah, we want it, then off we go with $5 million and all the soft costs. But if it costs us $250 or whatever up front to get to a referendum, that's something that the board is going to have to really think long and hard about. And so what we'll do is offline, because now we're at 38 minutes. We've had 4 meetings between the crew. You and I talked the other day on the phone. I'm very open to having another meeting very soon as we really start to hammer down on that timeline and how much would this board have to authorize on the if come that the community is going to vote yes on a referendum. I feel like the board would need to know how much money is going to be paid right up to the day that referendum vote happens in November of 22 or whenever, because Larry?
Can I suggest that maybe, John, you should go back and see if there's a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and go through the phases of that. And then you can go to phase 1, or authorize phase 1 if you're comfortable with that. And if that works out well, then you can maybe go and say, here's what it costs to get to phase 2.
Look, we're going to get together. And John, I hope maybe you don't have to come to all the again, but we'd love you to.
Yeah, no problem.
This isn't a one and done. We'll have you back in a workshop in a month or two after we interesting thing, and we'll have to talk about it. And by the next time we do the workshop, we'll have that hammered out, right?
Right, sounds good.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys, and
Thank you.
Diana, Gail, Peter.
By the way, he's coming from Saratoga.
Yes. Don't say no.
Oh, well,
Thanks, Mary.
It's beautiful country down there, that's for sure.
thanks, guys and
Good to
gals.
see you, Larry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Because they're taking it. Thank you for the question about the grant, because that's good news if we move forward and all that. So from the memories of the board members who were around for the 2005, if it was 1,000 acres for $7 million, did we not have to bond $7 million because we got $2 million in grants?
Joe, it was a little over 5 million, wasn't it? The bond was a little over 5 million?
I thought the bond was around 5, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that,
I don't know what we got in grants, but
I don't recall us getting grants for that. I'm not saying that we didn't, I just don't
As far
remember.
as I know, we purchased everything out of the 5 million.
Right.
okay.
There's a federal grant for almost $2 million, county grant for $300,000.
That's right, we did get something for Schreiber's Farm.
Yeah, yeah,
That was a state grant, was it not?
yeah. Well, federal money
Yep.
is through the state grant, yeah.
So we actually got more than the $5 million worth.
So that, I just think this in terms of perspective, that's part of the, when you get to the bond or the vote, all that's, that's what you get too, it's on the table, it's not just the vote at the bottom, the grants, all the other, that's all figured out as part of itself.
John, I got it, and we'll, because if it ends up that we can come back to the board and say, hey, guess what, we have a free ride to the referendum, I can't imagine anybody would be up against that.
One of the things also that we didn't talk about was when the first bond was turned down, one of the
Yes.
things we found out that people didn't want to buy just development rights, some of it they wanted to own.
Yeah. Another step in the process, that's all. You know?
What was it till the day?
No, it wasn't. And if anything we've learned this year, and the next gentleman is a good segue, with all that we've done this year, there is a process to things, isn't there? And it can be frustrating at times, but isn't it funny, some of the stuff we've done this year, that at the end, you're like, you know, I'm kind of glad we went through that process. Because some good decisions came out of collaborative and taking a little.
Thank you very
John,
much.
safe ride back.
See you, John.
All right. All right, so Bruce, you have 2 minutes. So the next topic,
By the way, that isn't John's car, that's Larry's car.
it is, you know what, I don't know this thing, he didn't bring that from.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So the next topic tonight, and I'm not doing well on keeping the time limits, am I? I gotta say, the guy came from Saratoga, you know. But the next topic is a discussion on Webster Today's proposed advertising rate schedule. And the Webster Today is really the Town Times that has been around for 34 years. A little bit of rebranding in October of 2020, and certainly a new look and style. And with that, I'll hand the baton to Bruce Pilato from Pilato Entertainment. And Bruce, do you want to, I don't know if the camera, well, is it gotcha? All right.
So am I sitting in this process?
Sure.
You're comfortable.
Respectfully, I'm gonna take my mask off. I've had both my vaccine shots, so. Hopefully, we'll be all right. Okay. Fine.
So you just admitted you're old.
Yes, I am. Okay, thank you very much for taking the time to do this. I appreciate it. I know you're all very busy, and I hope you can all see me over there. My name is Bruce Pilato. I have been a resident of the town of Webster since 1979. I was born in Webster, Ondecoit. Please don't hold that against me. But I love it here, and I've married a woman back in 1980. We've grown 3 children here, and this is where we're going to stay for the rest of our lives. I have an interesting past. I'm going to give you a very quick summary of it. I graduated from Syracuse University School of Public Communications, Newhouse School of Public Communications, and immediately accepted a job for the Gannett Rochester newspapers in 1978, literally weeks after I got out of college. And I worked both in advertising and in editorial. It was my goal to be an entertainment journalist and write for publications like Rolling Stone and Entertainment Weekly and things like that. But I got married, had kids, and my wife wouldn't leave Webster, so I said, okay, I got to figure out how to do it from here. So that's what I did. And I had a great education at Gannett. I stayed there actually over 20 years, almost 25 years. Learned pretty much every aspect of print and newspaper and advertising. Was also, because I got my degree in broadcast, I had quite a bit of training in that as well. And I was kind of balancing my interest in being a entertainment journalist with my responsibilities working in advertising. So when I finally left, I started my own company, and I ended up working for some record companies, and I ended up taking on management of some pretty famous people. I've worked with a lot of gold and platinum level musicians. I've worked for Ringo Starr, I've worked for Journey, I've worked for Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and I've worked in a role in marketing. I've worked in management, and so I've kind of been around the horn with all that. And the interesting thing is not that I've done that, but I've done it from Webster, New York, because I made that a priority. It's very important for me that I stay true to this community. So anyways, one of the things I did was I had an ad agency as part of my company, and I did a lot of marketing work, and I got to know Tom a little bit, and I made a suggestion that, maybe the town of Webster could have another option to what they were doing with the Town Times. I thought it would be a good idea to maybe modernize it, update it, make it a little more reader-friendly, a lot more graphics, more bullet content, so that people would really take the time and look at it, and that the town of Webster's government could be a little more amenable to people in terms of its level of communication. So we got together last fall, and as you know, we put together the first edition of Webster Today, and the whole idea was, let's give it some nice graphics, and let's put the information out there in a very concise form. I was involved in the launch of USA Today, a national newspaper, and their whole idea is people are going to read this newspaper in 15 minutes. Let's get the information out there, keep it very graphic friendly. And so I said, I think we can do this. And the idea is, we live in a beautiful area in Webster. Let's put a nice picture on the cover, and let's make it so when people get it, it doesn't go in the trash bin. It stays right on their kitchen table, or it stays on their coffee table, and eventually they look at it. And from the response that Tom and some of the other people in the town have told me, people are taking the time to look at it and read it. So what is my objective to be here tonight? My objective is, first, to look at what the town has had in the budget for the Town Times, which was approximately $42,000 for 3 issues. Okay? I believe that by opening this up and expanding it and doing some very limited but important advertising from area businesses, and maybe some businesses outside of the area that are trying to draw into Webster a little bit, that we can keep the budget the same and have more issues, or better yet, have more issues and bring the budget down. And so that's what we're trying to do. As you know, the Town Times has been around for 34 years, had a lot of great information, but again, I think by putting it in a more concise format, making it more graphic friendly, that we can have a lot more impact with the taxpayers here in Webster. So what I wanted to talk about was the structure of how we're going to do this. So when I sat down with the people here at the town, I said, this is my company, this is what I do. I've been involved in a lot of print publications before. And obviously, both as a journalist, I've actually had 1,500 articles published internationally. So I know a little bit about writing, and I know a lot about graphic design and everything. And I said, let me take the whole thing under my roof. I'll bring in the people that we need. We use people from around here and some people who are not around here, and we get it done more cost effectively with a better product. And to accomplish that, what I'm trying to do is, increase the frequency. I've been asked to develop advertising rates to handle all aspects of advertising sales, including the hiring and management of a salesperson, which we've done, sales prospecting, sales presentations, customer-provided advertising material product flow, invoicing, and receipt of advertising income. So what's the purpose of this? The purpose of this is so the town of Webster can share in the advertising revenue in a very healthy way to bring down the money the town is spending right now to put this publication, or what it had done in the past, obviously, to a lower level of money. So what we're looking at is a 65-35 split of advertising revenue. And what that would be is the town would get 65% of every dollar that comes in. My company would get 35%, but out of that, I would provide these services that I've just outlined, plus the fact that, we lay the publication out, we rebuild a lot of the content editorially, et cetera, et cetera. In most cases, people will give us camera-ready ads. If they need us to build the ads, we can do that for a very nominal rate. It's like $3 a square inch. So let's talk about the pricing and the income potential. Okay, so the second sheet I handed you is a spreadsheet here, okay, which unfortunately we don't have a big graphic for the people at home, but I can walk you through it pretty quickly, okay? The first line in there is how many people do we deliver to? Well, right now we are delivering to approximately 25,000 mailboxes. That is every single house in the town of Webster, as well as every business in the town of Webster. It is complete 100% saturation coverage. Obviously, we deliver it through the mail, and we've worked very closely with our local 14580 post office to make sure these things get out on time and make sure that the carriers, know the days they have to deliver them. The issue pages. So if we do a 16-page book, which is what this one is the one we did in January, the town cost is $14,125, and that includes production, everything, postage, soup to nuts. It's $14,125. If we move to a 20-page book, we're going to increase the cost of the town to $18.50, so that's going to bring it up to $15,975. And if we go to a 24-page book, we're going to increase the town cost by $1,300, so not too much more, and that's going to be at $17,275. That's with no advertising. So what I have proposed is 5 different ad rates, starting at a 1/16 of a page, going to an 1/8, a quarter, a half, and a full. It starts pretty nominally at $175 for a 1/16. By the time we get to a quarter, it's $525. A half is $975, and a full page is $1750. Now, you may ask, well, where'd you come up with these rates? Well, you got to look at what they're getting. If you did a postcard and you sent it to every mailbox in Webster, by the time you got done with production, postage, and everything else, you would be north of $10,000. So for an advertiser to put a quarter-page ad in this thing for $525 and reach 25,000 mailboxes, it's a no-brainer. Yes?
Where'd you get the number 25,000?
We have 23,306 residences, 1,325 businesses.
Is the residence, does that include all like apartments and everything?
It's every mailbox in Webster.
Okay.
If that's 14580, that's roughly 40% of Penfield too, because that's a 14580 zip code because of the school district.
It's everybody that we would mail to in town for the town of Webster, correct? I mean, we went over the numbers with the people here at the town.
Well, the reason I asked that is because I've always heard for years and years that around our mailboxes are around 13,500. when we send things out. So that's, it just sounded like a lot to me, but okay.
This probably
Okay.
includes the village too. That's another.
I can tell you this, okay, and Joe Herbst, you might have some of that, all right? But the reality is this. We kind of went over this back in October, and we went over it again in January. Paul Adams, Chris Bilo have been on the team putting this together. Do you remember how I had asked, geez, you know, I got this database of, 15,000 residences. What if we went with that, just mail merge it off of that instead of the mail house 14580, and it was actually going to cost more in the postage to send to 17,000.
Yeah,
than
it's
it
cheaper
was
postage
to-
if you do saturation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
And so
so-
that, the accountant in me, because I'm like, that seems like too many mailboxes for residences. We certainly, in the future, can go down to, drilling in with assessment department and with my database of 15,000 residences that I think,
I don't have any problem with the number, I was just curious as to how
Yeah.
we arrived at it.
Okay.
we might walk away spending more money per edition. So, and.
Okay, so if I can continue here. So let's look at what revenue this is going to bring in. Now, obviously, if you filled up a whole full page with 1/16 of a page, you'd bring in $2,800. If you just buy a full page, it's $1,750. So we got to come up with an average, and we feel the average is going to be $2,160 between smaller ads, bigger ads. That's about what our average page is going to be. So if we have one ad in a 16-page book, the town's going to bring in $2,160. They're going to end up with $1,404 of that revenue, and my company would receive $756. And we can move to say maybe 5 ads, okay, 5 pages of advertising. That would bring in $10,800 in revenue, and the town would get $7,020. And if you go all the way up to 10 pages of advertising, now at that point, we're going to go to bigger books. So like if we go to 5 pages of advertising, a 16 would probably go to a 20-page book because you'd need more room for your editorial. And then if we go to 10 pages, we'd probably be at a 24-page book. But either way, the costs are going to go down significantly to the town, to the point where on a 24-page book with 10 pages of advertising, the cost to the town is $75.60. Okay? So we were talking about $17,275 with no advertising. We're going to knock it down over $10,000.
Actually, Bruce, the cost of the town net on that is $32,3578.
Right, 32,3578, correct. So we've got the cost of the town before advertising and after the advertising. So where do we think we're going to be? Well, there was no advertising in January. We did a couple of in-house ads saying, if you're interested in advertising, please let us know. And we got, like I said, pretty good response. If we go to, in a 16-page book, 4 pages of advertising in April, we're pretty confident we're going to be able to do that, okay? It's going to bring the cost down to $85.09 for the town. And if we go to a 20-page book, okay, and do 5 pages of advertising, it's going to bring it to $89.55, but you've gone up 4 pages. And then, of course, if we do a 20-page book with 6 pages of advertising, the cost of the town is $75.51. Okay, so let's look at where the budget is. $42,377, you were doing 3 issues. With no advertising, that's what you're going to get. With 16 pages but no ads, it's going to go up to $56,503. We don't want that to happen. However, if we go with 4 issues, 1 extra issue than you're doing now, we do 16 to 20 pages, which is approximately between 2 and 4 pages of advertising, the yearly budget is going to drop to $39,143. So where are we today? Well, right now, we're over $4,000 in revenue for the April issue. Okay, and we're confident that we're going to do considerably better. Hopefully, we're going to double that. Okay? The response from businesses in the town has been fantastic. And we've just started because obviously we have to get this process out of the way. But Tom said, we got a deadline to meet. We got to put this to bed March 12th. So let's see what you can do, and then the town board will, look at the situation. So that's where we are right now, and I believe that we're going to be able to continue to put out a quality product. There's a lot of information. Everybody in this town knows how to reach everybody now who works here. They know what the projects are. They know about the sewer project. They know about a lot of stuff. So what we're trying to do is give the town a better way to reach its tax base and to save the town some money. That's why I'm here tonight. So I think I have time for a few questions, right? If there are any.
Just point out, all of the advertising revenue will be handled by Bruce, and then he'll give us a credit back on the bill to net the bill down, so we won't deal with any of the interaction between the advertisers.
And the other thing too is you will know exactly how much money you have coming, because all you have to do is look at what's in the book. We have a very strict rate card. There will be no deals. You're going to pay rate card, and everybody's going to pay the same rate. So if you see 4 pages of advertising, you'll know what your revenue is going to be, no problem.
Well, I don't.
Great.
Questions, comments, because
No, I think it's great.
it's got to run in your family, and I shouldn't be, glass house throwing stones, but, besides Barry's question in the 1 minute, you went all 15 minutes on the presentation, Bruce. You gotta love it. That's.
Well, the other guys.
That's well, that's true. But at the end, when you said, Tom said, let's get the. We have on the town board agenda for next week a resolution to approve this rate schedule. Because it's very similar to the DPW rates each year, to the Parks and Rec rates. The board has to approve those rates. So that agenda item is slotted for next week. But obviously, we wanted Bruce to come in and explain all of this, so that as you go into next week and think about doing a resolution and a motion and approving the rate schedule for 2021. This is not, we're still in an infancy stage trying to figure things out, so I really wouldn't want to go beyond that. And also, obviously, there'd be a contract that would be authorized for the supervisor to sign. So, but as I have explained to Bruce, there's a process to government. And we couldn't come on next Thursday night to a regular board meeting and propose a resolution like that unless you came in and explained some things and had the board have a shot at asking questions, comments, this and that.
Well, the idea is to lessen the burden financially for the town and to give the taxpayer a better product. One of the things we talked about is we are going to develop a few more human interest stories in it. For instance, in this issue, we did a whole thing on the Civil War veterans of Webster. I mean, there's over 150 Civil War veterans buried in the town of Webster. Some of them were prisoners of the Andersonville prison. I mean, it's incredible history. You know what? None of my neighbors knew about it. None of them knew anything about it. And they said, I read that. That was interesting. Did you see that the one guy got court-martialed and then he came back? And I said, yeah, it's all in here. So the thing of it is we want to put out a great product, and to do it without a burden financially to the town, we have to do the advertising. And I think, the town gets the vast majority of the money, so how can that be a bad thing?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, my information's on the sheet. Please feel free to call me anytime. And like I said, I can't go anywhere. I'm in Webster until this pandemic ends. So we're here. Thank you.
And Bruce, I just want to, sorry.
I had a question for Paul with respect, because this would be a budgetary issue, right?
Mhm.
And we would be paying on a quarterly basis. So we could track what we're paying, right? Just to see that it is not going over budget, right? Okay. I just wanted to clarify.
Well, I'm pretty transparent on this one.
No.
The goal for 2021 to me
Right.
is that we do a January, April, October, January, April, July, and October edition. To me, if we can get 4 editions of the Webster Today out, the Newtown Times, and do that at or under the budget that was for this year, we just increased the number of editions from 3 to 4. That's a victory. because I know you guys have heard me say this, and I'm a broken record. We have a communication challenge. We always have. The town government's communication to its residents is challenged. This is not the be-all and end-all, but this could be a very good cog in the wheel of us bridging that communication challenge. And I'll leave you with this, and Bruce, you did not know this. Today, I go in after all the meetings I'm in, I go into my inbox, I got 2 postcards from the October edition that people mailed back. You know how you could tear out something and mail back? And one of them was a woman asking for help on how to get her COVID vaccine. I won't get into what the other one was. You can't make that up. Today, February 25th,
It happens.
5 months after that publication, and people must have held on to it, that she sent in the postage paid postcard.
The one thing I do want to add too is there are now statistical information. Everybody said, well, nobody's reading newspapers anymore, nobody's reading magazines, it's all internet, everybody does it on their phone. What they're finding out is direct mail products, especially magazines that are well produced, are cutting through the clutter, and people are going delete, 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 delete in their emails, and they're not even opening this stuff. This comes in your house, it's got your name on it, every magazine's got the person's name on it, okay? And we want to make a product that they would normally pay for, but give it to them for free, because then we know they'll read it. I'm going to let you guys,
I
I'm
just
going to
have
go.
one more comment.
Sure.
And that is that I think this is great, and I think the publication looks wonderful. As we move forward, we talk about, being able to do 24 pages, that's great, we can sell more advertising, everybody benefits from that. I just don't want us to lose sight of why we're putting this out. I don't want our town information to be lost amongst everything else.
I agree.
So I just want us to keep our eye on that.
Where did Chris and Paul, who have been on the team of producing this, and one of the things that we've talked about is that we are uber sensitive to the fact we don't want to look like a penny saver.
No.
You know, we have to really be mindful of how this thing
Number
looks.
one, we're communicating with the residents.
You got it.
And after that,
Yep, I
It's
mean,
all
and
gravy.
it's been part of our discussion, and it's kind of like, I don't want to say we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but we're in such baby steps right now, that,
This is going to be an editorially driven product. But let me give you a success story. We have 3 premium positions. Page 3, there's a quarter page. The center spread, you can buy the strip along the bottom. These are all like 25-30% premium what you normally pay. And then the back page, which is a half-page ad right here, because we're not going to do anything above here. You have to pay a full-page rate for that. We have sold this out for the rest of the year. We have sold page 3 out for the rest of the year. Okay? We know this product is going to do well. And we're not going to turn it into a penny saver. We're going to make it a quality editorial product. That's what it's about. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks for coming in.
It is a quality product, by the way. I do like reading it all. Thank you.
Great.
Little bummed you didn't wear a rock t-shirt, Bruce, but I'll let it pass.
He's got that. Oh, here we go. Here
I knew you were going to ask.
Why do I match wits with you?
we go. Don't even try.
Very creative guy. Very creative guy. Well, Mr. Herbst, you gotta wait for Mr. Abbott to come back. Okay? This is it.
One last plea for money.
The man's last formal day is tomorrow. So, this is pretty interesting, although we did as a board, did a little pseudo vote before and said you have 7 minutes.
You know how much I can cram in 7 minutes.
Sometimes I wish you wouldn't challenge him that way so that, if he had 10, he might talk slower.
No.
No, you'd just cram more in, wouldn't you?
Well, what was in all the board members' folders today, and 2 days ago, Kim Doyle sends it out digitally to the board members, so they have, kind of a heads up on some supporting docs of the topics. A lot of colorful stuff from the open space people, a lot of colorful stuff from from Bruce Pilato. And then we get the Joe Herbst.
Was that not colorful?
Well, there is a highlight in the middle of one of the pages. But it's not exactly exciting stuff, MS4 and 303D and all
No,
that.
you already had your fill of that today.
So we'll forgive you for not having bells and whistles on this thing. Barry, it was probably exciting to you. No. I mean, this is, although, you know what? No, this stuff started coming around in 03, right?
Yeah, the phase two.
With the DEC and all that, so.
I was there in 03.
Yeah, you were, right. You had some
Yeah,
years
5 years.
on with this stuff.
What's that?
I was on the original committee at the county.
Were you really?
Yeah, I was one of the initial members.
It's like old home week then. Well, does the camera hit you?
Is that because
Yeah.
you're around the quick position?
Okay.
Yep. So just want to touch base one last time. I've been asking for this for probably the last 5 or 6 years. And there's no time like the present, being this will be my last plea for it. But looking for a townwide drainage district. And it's not a new budget line, it's not an increase in budget, it's strictly having everybody pay into it. Right now, you have, and I sent you all the statistics, and that was from assessing as far as the residential parcels that pay into a district, and then those available parcels. And it's actually 75.16% of the residents actually pay into a drainage district. It's on average around $39 to $40 per household. But the 24% plus, just under 25% that's not paying into it, equates to quite a significant increase for our budget. It's roughly $152,000 additional per year. These residents that aren't paying into it are receiving benefits. I had Ellie go through this week, and we went through subdivision by subdivision, and there were very few of the 25% that don't have storm sewers, catch basins, maybe they don't have gutters, but they all live in a watershed in one way, shape, or form. They've received benefits from the highway department, from the drainage, and/or they're still need to participate in the phase 2 end of this. The unfunded mandates that were unveiled in 2003, phase 2, affected every resident. Every resident lives in a watershed. And I just think it's time that everybody, 100% across the board, residential, help support that.
Can I interject something, Joe, that you've been helping on, you've been very instrumental on for the last couple months? Somebody will have to take the baton from you to finish it. 3 houses on Holt Road that have a drainage issue. And we're working with them. Charlie Genesi, our town attorney, we're getting resolution on it, getting easements signed, we're gonna take care of it. And that was an eye-opener to me because 2 of the houses, the one on the left and the right house, but not the middle one, are in a drainage district paying that $30 or $40, and the middle one wasn't. Do you know why the middle one wasn't?
Date,
Yes.
What'd she say?
the date.
It was built in 19 whatever, 65, 70, and the other 2 houses were built newer.
Wow.
You find that odd? Geographically, that's, because I assumed,
What's that?
Fell through the cracks.
No,
No.
it's actually, there's a timeline when a lot of the subdivisions, the older, you could, Winifred, Garywood, Beverly, Adeline, a lot of the older subdivisions were like pre-haloid Xerox.
They're 50s.
So, yeah, the drainage districts at that point weren't starting to form because the drainage districts became site-specific to the development. So a lot of the developments that were in prior to that were never picked up on. If there were modifications to the subdivision, the newer portion of that subdivision got it, the older portion didn't.
Right.
So you've got neighbors that are side by side, paying, not paying. They're still receiving the same benefit, but I think it's more fair and equitable across the board
Yeah,
if
very
everybody's
interesting.
paying into
Absolutely.
a drainage district because they're all receiving the benefit one way or the other. And it's not just that, there's 6 minimum measures on the phase 2 compliance. And the county board helps support the coalition supports a lot of that, but there's a couple, the first facets, the first minimum measures 1 and 2, everybody is receiving the benefit of that, but not everybody's paying into it. And that's the public education, public participation.
Well, and
That's done at the county level.
And to your point, this is not strictly looking at this as a money grab or a revenue grab for the town. All of these, again, we go back to unfunded mandates, are costing us more and more in these drainage areas. We're expending more funds, but not everyone is sharing in the cost of that.
Right, and I think I had a pretty good analogy the other day when we were sitting in that meeting. There were 8 of us sitting around the table, and I said, we order a pizza, and we all eat it, but only 5 of us pay into it. It's not fair.
Well, and, I gave the example that we're working on Holt Road. And when the people that now all of a sudden will have that $30 or $40 on their house will say, another tax. That's what it is, right? I mean, let's call a spade a spade. But, so we don't do this because 75.1% of the properties are getting it, but the other 25 aren't? Would that be a reason why we wouldn't go forward with this? Because the numbers, as far as the revenue in your drainage districts, and the money that comes in, which is pretty much used by the highway department to manage things.
Correct.
I mean, you're talking about an additional, on the residential alone, $100,000. Is that about right?
Yeah, it's over that. Correct.
Which, what do you do with that additional money?
It's maintenance. I mean, it's all maintenance, and it's staying EPA compliant. As it is, when the unfunded mandates came out, the highway ate all the costs because the highway took care of all the mandates and the requirements. So from phase 1 and 2, like I said, or minimum measure,
Joe,
they call them 10 minutes.
how much do we pay just to belong to the committee?
It's just over, this year was $10,520. That's just the membership due.
That was the committee bill, was that?
And we have to.
But we didn't, it used to be, there wasn't a charge for it initially.
Oh,
In 2002, 2003, it was minuscule.
First couple of years, there wasn't a charge.
Yeah.
And then they decided that because of all the requirements that were gonna be brought forth, the county had a better way to cover that than each individual town did.
Right,
So therefore, that's why the charge went into effect.
sure.
So
it was
everybody
much-
pays a share.
And it was much easier to collaborate and be compliant than it was independently. It would be far more costly to do it independently.
The cost of this has gone up. Every year it goes up a little bit more, but I mean, it's an old issue that, initially for our drainage in town, we have, when the phone rang, we take care of it. And then we dedicated a couple of people to it. Then we dedicated a foreman and a couple of people to it. And then we dedicated a foreman, personnel, equipment, because it just grew and grew and grew. And so our responsibilities along the way have grown, and so has the cost. But, like Joe said, only 75% of the people pay into it, the residents, and 25 don't, because they just weren't in, originally they weren't in areas where you would think drainage was an issue, okay?
Did you
Now,
also,
people
Yeah,
on
let's
the
hear
west,
from Bill. Bill was on the committee. You could.
no, he's in an area that he didn't think drainage was.
Oh, I'm in the 25% area.
but, the northwest corner of town, which was much more rural back then.
Right.
Now that's been developed and is being continued to develop. I noticed that there's more houses being built on the corner of Shoemaker and Van Alstyne Road. There's
And
development,
Herman.
right?
Somebody bought Herman and built it there.
Somebody had Herman bought this building.
Is a drainage district on your tax bill similar to an EDU for the sewer? It's not based on your assessment, it's just a flat fee?
I believe so.
Yeah, it's a flat fee.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I can see where some of old Webster over off DeWitt that might not be as assessed value, appraised value as much as the newer ones, that affects them more than newer, more expensive houses as a percent, right?
Well, if you want to look at it as percent, but if you want to look at it as, cutting the pizza and how much is it per slice?
Yes, You know,
As I
I'm-
recall, when we started out, it was like $5. The first initial,
Can't remember.
it was like
Yeah.
$5.
Joe,
But the issue always was, you start adding a tax to people, are they gonna vote for you the next year? They're not gonna like it. They'll tell you that. You put a tax on them, another tax on them, and that's what they tell you.
But
Let's call a spade, let's put it right out there, that's been the issue. The
The
cost
difference-
and what homeowners are willing to pay for and what they're not.
the difference being, though, 75% are already paying and
Right,
helping
right.
support the 25% that aren't.
Right.
Right.
And just to add to this, the EPA is going to be coming out with new mandates, and these mandates, especially for 303 delisted water bodies, which most of Webster is, are even far more stringent, far more stringent. We sent back, as the county coalition chair, and with the surrounding county coalitions, we sent back almost 400 pages of resistance and objections to the new proposal. That was 3 years ago. The draft form was supposed to come out last year after they had reevaluated it in Albany, and the new draft form has just made it to the regions of DEC for their review before it's distributed. But the requirements on the MS4s is going to be even worse.
Now, if we were to form a townwide drainage district and everybody paid into it, would it remain at $39 or would it be adjusted down?
Well, it would naturally go down unless we expand the budget.
Right.
So the cost of it might stay the same initially,
It might go down to $30.
right, but more
Right.
people paying into
Paying
it
into
would
it.
would
More people
lower
paying
the
into it,
amount.
right,
Correct.
right.
Joe, did you also say there's a number of commercial properties that are not paying into this as well?
There are no commercial properties. That is something, unlike Henrietta and Greece, there are no commercial properties. And if you base that on amount of impervious area, that's a whole nother discussion.
They should probably be paying, I'm sorry to
But-
say this, they
but
should be
the
paying the
other
most.
Large municipalities like Greece and Henrietta, where they've got large malls and stuff like that,
Yeah.
they pay a percentage into it. And if you look at I sent onto you the codes, there is
Right.
verbiage in our codes already that allow us to do that.
Yeah.
But like I said, that's not
So if we
not
had,
discussion for tonight.
if we had a townwide drainage district, would then all people be paying into it, including commercial?
I would hope.
Yeah.
They should, and realistically, you look at as far as the phase two, the whole idea of the phase two is water quality. No different than 1978
Right.
Clean Water Act and phase one in the 93, that's all about water quality. You look at the amount of impervious area and then the hot spots, the
Right.
point source pollutants, gasoline, oils, antifreeze, all the hydraulics, the crap that's on large parking lots. How many times you walk through a parking lot and after a rainstorm and see the rainbow? That's all pollutants. They're one of the bigger contributing factors.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody should be paying into it, but
How does the commercial rate, is
it's
that,
per square foot of impervious area. That's typically how it's done.
okay,
And if there are, I know in some of the other towns, there are credits, just like the DEC has. You do bioretentions, rain gardens, ways to filter it prior to it being discharged back into the environment or the watershed. There's credits for that. I'm not sure how the other towns, municipalities do it as far as if there's a reduced rate for more water quality amenities on
Sure.
site.
So the residential one's a little more cut and dry because we either keep the rate the same or we take the same budget and, hey, guess what, everybody's down to $32. My understanding of the commercial rate, we'd have to figure out how to set that rate. Because heretofore, we're starting from scratch.
Correct.
Because it's very different than residential, we've gotta go per square foot of impervious. And that,
Who's the largest square foot of impervious in town? Xerox.
Yeah.
That's like I said, this is
Oh,
this is
boy.
a much bigger discussion.
that's nice.
So, but we're looking for right now for the residential, and I'm not sure offhand if reducing the rate, and it would make more sense to pick up the 25% and then share the wealth across all that at the current budgeted rate. But then down the road, you may end up having to raise that rate to accommodate the new mandates. Because realistically, we're strapped. One of the things that I got to do was I've taught in Buffalo, Albany, and Syracuse on municipal sustainability via the unfunded mandates. And that's because we've gotten very, very creative on meeting the mandates using what we have. But we're starting to run out of what we have, and it's starting to affect our normal maintenance cycle. We've got 3 streets in town right now that need new storms. I can run them under the Capitol, but then I'm compromising the road maintenance. So who do I short, Peter or Paul?
John.
And and John, maybe Ringo. But the problem is, replacing those storms, unfortunately, the age of those subdivisions, the storms and the sanitaries run right down the middle of the road. So it's
boy.
far more costly than lawn repair, because now you're talking asphalt and all the base, sub-base to bring it back. So,
That's the way it was built in the old days.
yeah,
Is it
right down the
possible
middle.
Sewer lines were put in the road.
Is it possible to line those?
Yeah,
Rather than dig
some
them
of
up?
them.
Well, I've got quotes right now from multiple companies. You're looking at about just under $200,000 for one road, just under $200,000 if we do it right down the middle of the road and replace it. I've got costs for line. The problem with lining is, in this one particular street, there's 4 composites of pipe. It's got concrete, steel, clay, tile, and plastic. It's got all 4 composites. So the cost, it was $78,000 to line it. And then they have to go back in for an additional cost and cut out all the laterals. And a lot of the basements on the street are gravity fed. So you can't wait. It's not like there's some pump with a backflow valve and they can protect themselves. But part of the problem we're having is those basements are flooding. Every time we have an event, there's another failure in a pipe from a concrete pipe where the top fell in, sinkhole shows up in the road, basements flood. But we don't have the kind of revenue to just run at $200,000 down the middle of the street.
Which road is that?
Adeline.
Adeline?
And Beverly's right behind it.
Yeah.
And then Thomar's right behind
Told
that.
ours right after that.
I say townwide drainage district is most certainly warranted.
What's the process for
I'm just glad you asked
Adopting
that, Betty.
a townwide drainage district?
It's a Charlie
Public hearing,
question.
I assume?
It is.
It's a public hearing, probably.
Yeah, definitely gotta have a public hearing.
Yeah, check with
Again, the
Charlie.
district's already there and the rate's already there. It's a matter of adding those that are not.
But that's residential only.
Right.
And that rate doesn't work for commercial
Correct.
because you said it's based on
Worry about the
a foot of a, so that is variable.
Sorry?
I'd worry about getting the residential resolved first.
Oh, yeah, we've
Drop
definitely
back.
got to do this
Because the commercial's gonna take some discussion.
piece at a time.
Yeah, I think you're right, Bill, that, I mean, yeah, we could ask Charlie to, Monday's March 1st. 10 months left in the year. So realistically, because we don't know the process, what would have to be done to have this on everybody's tax bill for the January of 2022? Town bill. It's on the town bill, right? Town and county. And Barry, I do get a kick out of it. Of course, you're not running again, so you don't care, right?
No, it's this.
That's right. Yeah. I hate to say, I want to speak for other people, but doing what's right, I'm not concerned about what year it's in, and it's an election year. I want to make sure we follow the process, the public hearing and all that. We just don't know if this is something that is, how long it takes and what you have to do. Charlie's the guy to ask, right?
Right.
Well, and when we look at, people are going to say you're raising my taxes, but if you look at 75% of the town who just now found out that maybe the person who lives in the middle of 2 homes, or 25% of the town is not paying into it, I think they'd be a little upset too.
Well, yeah, and I think some of the people that aren't paying will understand that they're receiving the benefit and they need to share the cost.
Right.
And the cost is gonna go down. The per unit charge will go down with the additional 25%.
I think we'll have to be careful how much we take it down, because if we're looking for
Right.
more expenditures to meet future mandates, we don't want to do a bait and switch kind of thing where, oh, you know what, if we all sign up, you're going to pay $30, but oh, by the way, in 2 years, we got to raise it back to $36. I mean, we need to be careful how we do that.
Kinda sounds, I'm not gonna say it.
Sounds what?
No, I can't say it.
You're not running. Say it.
Don't say anything.
Kinda sounds like a revale.
You know what? I was going to. You can't. Obviously, the way with the 2% cap works now, you can't play that game. so no, we would want, Patty, you're right. You want to be very mindful of, here's the total budget of drainage districts in 2021.
And what are we looking at in 2022?
Exactly. If we're trying to keep it the same, then yeah, your $39 a unit's gonna go down to $33 or $31 by doing this.
Maybe we find a happy medium,
Well, that's,
and the 75% drop a little bit, and it's not
Right.
as big a charge on the 25%.
That's what I'm thinking.
well,
That's
and that's an
We know there's
education of the
gonna be
public.
more
about,
regulations,
you know,
and the cost is gonna go up. We know that, so why would we not plan now for that?
Right, and it's not a number we're gonna pull out of the air, we're gonna look at what the budget will be in the next couple of years, what
Right.
we're anticipating.
Right, yeah. I get the feeling that there's not anybody on this board that doesn't feel as though, man, this has gotta be done. It makes sense, it's fair, it's.
Well, yeah, it definitely has to be done, and I think the other issue we need to look into right away is the commercial aspect, because, they should be contributing also. I know there's gonna be some sticky situations there, but we should probably open up the discussion, with Charlie at least, maybe offline to see, where we go with this. But you make a great point, Joe, and I appreciate you bringing this, to the board once again, and, like Supervisor Flaherty said, I think we're all on the same page as far as this goes.
I kind of lean toward Bill that let's attack the residential first. But if we find out the process is such that we have time to, in parallel, discern that commercial, I understand that you said that Xerox is the biggest impervious. I get it, that we're the ones, even the village properties come under this, right? So it doesn't matter what part of Xerox is in the village or town, it's our charge, the town charge.
Right.
If Charlie says that the process is really in a
We don't
month.
charge
we
the
could have it
village.
done.
I don't think the village pays into the
No,
storm
the
district.
village doesn't pay into this.
Well, you have here, there's 15,000 residential parcels in town. Are you not counting village homes?
I think that the village, if not mistaken, is their own MS4.
They are.
Okay, so that 15,000 parcels
Outside.
in town doesn't include anything in the village,
Right.
so.
So it doesn't include,
Patty's good now.
Right,
So it doesn't
the
include
village.
You
But
didn't,
I'm
lo-
paying my own.
you didn't lose your votes in the village pay.
Okay. Well, that makes me think from the last thing that there is close to 23,000 residences or whatever.
He said 25,000 mailboxes.
Yeah, well, I'm convoluting, I'm sorry.
Okay.
you don't think we have mailboxes in the
How
village?
many commercial, we don't know
They're
how
on
many
the house,
commercial
we can't
properties
hit
there
those.
are.
Sometimes my mailman's not aware that I have a mailbox.
It's based on square footage. I mean, you're gonna have to go out and get blueprints of every one of
Yeah,
those.
that's gonna be a,
Get the
What?
square footage
You're
of the
talking, commercial?
commercial.
That's easy to do.
We
They
have
do
it.
They do it they do it via satellite.
Right.
It's easy, the county's already started.
But one of the things you brought up was that there are credits available to those commercial properties who think outside the box. When you think of the rain gardens and the certain retention areas that they put in, there's smart ways to do that as opposed to just digging a pond. And you see it in several areas that you go to. I know that when I go to Costco, their parking lot has got the plants and all of that stuff, and I recognize it for what it is. So not only are they getting a tax credit, or they're getting some sort of credit for that, however that works, but they're helping to not contribute pollutants in the watershed by doing it in a smarter
That's where all the
way.
new development
In the new
is.
development's a requirement. You look
Right.
at Dairy Queen down the way,
Yep.
on Hard Road, they've got an absolutely beautiful rain
Yes,
garden.
they do.
And that was.
We put one in our parking lot on Van Ingen.
So, yeah, there's one right here, actually right here, just to
Yeah,
the north, yep. So, yeah, that's a requirement. And actually, the one that separates the town hall from this court building was put in via grant. I got a grant via the county. And other than the maintenance, we didn't pay to put that in. I mean, our cost share, or our manage, was the labor to put it in, but all the materials and stuff. And the filter sand that's in there is not cheap at all.
There's a development I can't remember the name of it, it's in Irondequoit.
T-Square,
What?
it's over by the House of Guitars on Titus.
They put all the plants up on the roof.
That gentleman has gone crazy over there. He's done a phenomenal job.
He really
Everything
has.
out over there is ecological and
Amazing.
environmentally friendly.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's got the.
I-square, right?
I-square, that's it,
Yep.
not T-square.
T-
T-square is what I use
I-square.
for the drywall. I-square.
Yeah,
yeah. Mr. Nolan,
yeah.
Yeah.
went to school with,
Yeah.
with his brother. He's younger than me.
It's got, I think the top floor is a restaurant, if I'm not mistaken.
They grow herbs up there, and that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Anyway,
Yeah, anyhow,
I'll reserve judgment on how we do this until
Charlie.
Charlie chimes in about the process, but if I'm a betting man, I bet you we're only doing residential right now, because I get the feeling commercial might have some things that'll make it challenging. But if Charlie says no, and you say that identifying the properties, the commercial properties and all that is easy, all right, then, if it's not a monstrous task to do them both at the same time and get truly a townwide drainage district on residential, commercial, I'm in, but I don't know. I want to hear what the process is. And Charlie's not here tonight, so we'll, yeah, I know.
Thank you for this one last ask. It's an important one, and certainly it's a drum you've been beating for quite a while.
Yeah, I had heroin, I think, when I started.
Hey, Joe, you know what? If this thing moves along,
I always
you
have
can come back as a subject matter expert citizen in the future as we go through this process, right?
I'm not going anywhere.
We'll invite you to
Hey,
a public hearing.
unless anybody else has anything, I think we are done for what was a very interesting workshop tonight.
Yes, it was.
Thanks, everybody. We're done.
Thank you.